It is election day here in the state of Texas, the first primary.
It's Christmas.
It's Christmas.
It's Christmas.
And you can find out your voting locations by going to KFYO.com. We have all of them listed there for Lubbock County. Remember, we've got, 27 vote centers. You can go and vote at any of them if you live in Lubbock County and if you're registered. And I do encourage you in this time where people are complaining about the Second Amendment, if you have your license to carry card, put that down instead of your driver's license.
Yeah, they like that one better.
Yeah, I like that one. They don't even have to ask if you're a Republican at that point. They just know.
I ride my horse to go vote. I rode my horse.
Did you really?
That's a tradition now. I always ride my horse over to the Market Street to vote early, and they always get a kick out of it. And so right away they know it's going to be a Republican ballot. Yeah.
By the way, that is Carl Tepper, and joining me also in studio, he's known around here and throughout the state as the KFYO sales whip. It is Ken Corbin. Hey, Ken.
How you guys doing?
Good. Yeah. How are you?
Yeah, I'm glad to bring you a new client, Chad.
I appreciate that.
A gentleman called up and said, I'd love Chad Hasty. I got to be on his show. So they'll start tomorrow for you, Chad.
I appreciate that. Yeah, always good to have some new businesses on. Well, it is election day, and Ken obviously will be on KFYO tonight talking about the coverage not only here but statewide as well.
I think Pratt and I have done that for 22 years now. We're going on doing elections.
That's a long time. That's a long
22 years of bad political analysis, ladies and gentlemen. But that's okay. Well, the kid's about to explode. Kid's about to explode on me.
We did just fine without you, Carl. It's so just. I mean, you jumped.
No, they do. They do a fantastic job.
You jumped on the Trump bandwagon early. I mean that is. I will say that is one you got right, but
you're still wearing the Trump hat.
But
by
you're
the
not.
way.
But I'm sure we can go back and find things where you weren't right, Carl. So
you're gonna have to go way back.
Well, what races are y'all looking at state? What interesting races are y'all looking at statewide?
We just talked about it offline. That it's that Paxton Huffines race. Which Huffines is it? They're twins.
I believe it's Philip Huffines.
Do we have to know?
Huffines.
It doesn't matter, does it really? So they're both it's the same guy. They're twins. And they have the same attitude. So
no, I don't think he's quite as crazy as his brother. To be honest,
I heard they're both now. I was with one. I was with the sitting state senator at the inaugural. They were very collegial. They were right in front of us, so that was kind of fun. And but I heard he's been tough to get along with in the state senate. To be honest with you, I've heard that a lot. Right. And now you might have the twin brother going in the same direction. It's been, I think, a $10 million together. Is that right, Ken? A $10 million race.
It's
between the two of them.
It's crazy.
And think about that, folks. That's $10 million, mostly of all their own money. That is way beyond a congressional race type of money. And I watched some of the ads last night when they're kind of, raising some questions about each other. Apparently it was very, again, I'm going to use the word collegial starting out in the campaign, but then around January it started to fall apart apparently. Yeah. And so they've been attacking each other about their businesses and where they live. Apparently the Huffines guy, did he have to move to be in the district?
I believe so.
He was in the Dallas side of the district and he needed to move to the Collin County side. So
there's a small part of Dallas County that is in that district.
And I think that's the part he lived in.
He was, I think part of the line is that, I'm actually represent the biggest part of the district. I think it's been part of her line.
And I think their car dealerships are all over Collin County. So I don't think you can make an argument. And I know
on that race, it's been hard. Neither one of them can say they're more conservative than the other. So it's kind of devolved into personal attacks from everything that I've seen.
Yeah, the Paxton legal issues have finally hit some of the forefront of the race. Now he's arguing that it wasn't his group; it was maybe one of those super PAC attack ads,
right?
Going after her, and now suddenly they're also all cozying up to Donald Trump. I get great satisfaction out of that, by the way. But suddenly, who's more Trump than the other guy or girl?
I know you listen to the ads.
You've seen that all over the state of Texas, where it's one of those where who loves Trump the most. That's that's what people.
I'm getting a big kick out of the George P. ads. That to me, those are the funniest ones out there.
Yeah,
I will tell you, it was Jerry Patterson was trolling us all through the summer and through the Trump campaign. I mean, just viciously trolling us. I finally had to. That was the period of my life when I left Facebook, and because I just couldn't take it anymore. And Jerry was just relentless on us. And he actually called me and left a message back in October. I think he was looking at running for land commissioner. I don't know. And he left a message a couple of times on the voicemail. I had it roll over to voicemail, and then tried to message me on Facebook Messenger. I just can't forgive him. I will not be voting for him even in a runoff. I just don't see it. George P., on the other hand, was up against a really tough situation where obviously Donald Trump went up against his dad really tough, and his dad fought back. And he did. He was the victory chairman, Ken. Do you remember, for RPT, and raised a lot of money for the party, and kept a positive face about him, and went ahead and he did endorse Donald Trump. So now, if you're wondering who I voted for, in this primary right now, I voted for that. Who's that third guy?
Rick Range.
I voted for Rick Range, who pretty much admitted the other day he's really just trying to throw George P. into a runoff for Jerry Patterson anyway.
Right.
Well, so I was kind of annoyed by that. That's why you shouldn't vote early.
Carl,
maybe, Chad.
The Texans enemy's going to come out. You've already shown your Yankee stripes already, but the Alamo issue with George P., I can't get past that. My attitude is anybody.
But Jerry's the one who threw it in there in the first place. He took it away from the Daughters of the Texas Revolution.
Anybody but George P. is kind of my attitude on them.
It's just all secrecy with George P. Bush. He in anything with the media he won't do. With the Alamo, he doesn't want to talk about it. He wants to get by on that last name, and now he wants to get by on, hey, I did come out for Donald Trump, and he did. And you're right that Jerry Patterson did have some harsh words for Donald Trump. I remember those days.
And relentless.
And there were a lot of Republicans who did. Now, has Jerry Patterson maybe changed his mind on Donald Trump? Maybe he has. But if you're going out and voting and voting for the person who you think supported Trump the most for Texas Land Commissioner, I just think that's a bad idea.
You need to find something else to occupy your time.
It is odd how George P. is. It's been a terrible lack of communication. Now, some of the things when he tries to explain what he's doing with the Alamo is saying, "Look, I'm trying to recreate the original battlefield." I mean, why didn't he say that 6 months ago, a year ago, and explain to the legislature?
What is he going to do? Is he going to tear down Hotel Gibbs, and is he going to tear down the
Hotel and all that?
I know. Is he going to tear down the mall that's right there? No, you're not going to do that. You need to preserve what we have.
And those are all really great questions for everyone. I mean, this is the heart of Texas. This is the Alamo.
It is. If there is hallowed ground in the state of Texas, that is it. And for George P. and anybody else involved in changing that and not showing reverence to that, and basically trying to turn it into a theme park, then shame on you. You don't deserve to be an elected official.
And part of the problem for George P. Bush is that this has all been done behind closed doors. Very few town halls. What he should have done, and what they still should do, is take a tour of Texas, go around and say, here's what, because the Alamo, like you said, Ken, people across the state care about the Alamo and what happens to the Alamo and what happens to those grounds. And they need to be going across state and have a big media tour. Here's what the plan is. We want your input. And George P. Bush just hasn't done it.
No, he hadn't. And plus, on a side note, George P., within two to 3 weeks of getting in there, they discontinued what was a very good radio program, This Week in Texas, which we aired here on this station, and many other stations in the area did too. They discontinued that program immediately without any fanfare or any reason why. I tried to ask, and there was no explanation. Yeah. So that's just a little side note for me. Another reason I don't like George P.
Ken Corbin will be joining us tonight. KFYO election coverage with Rob Snyder, Ken Corbin, Robert Pratt, myself tonight from 7 until whenever we get done. And when we come back, we're going to continue our discussion. Carl Tepper's here. We're going to talk about the Democratic turnout, blowing the Republicans away.
We're concerned.
We're concerned
We've got
about
some
that.
Concern. Yeah.
We'll talk about that. Chad Hasty Show, KFYO. All right, Chad Hasty Show, News Talk 95.1 FM, 790 AM, KFYO. Carl Tepper in studio, Ken Corbin in studio, as well as we talk election 2018. And, Ken, we did have someone who texted in, wanted to know your thoughts on the Estes Fallon race.
Estes, he's kind of been non-existent in his district, and I think that opened the door for Fallon. If he'd been, engaged, say like Seliger had been in his area, even though he's got challengers, I think he'd have a lot better chance at it, and I think Fallon wins that race.
I think Seliger. You bring up Seliger. Obviously, we've heard a lot about that race here on this station and throughout West Texas. I personally think Seliger is going to win tonight.
He's going to win it without a runoff.
Yeah, I think so. I don't see him going down.
The question is it 50? Is it 50 plus one, or is it 55?
Mike Cannon hasn't had the energy I thought he'd have going into this, and Victor Leal, I haven't seen anything. Of course, from here in Lubbock, it's difficult to tell.
Leal's non-existent. Well, you got to remember that this station KFYO reaches more of that district than any other media outlet. That's why you've heard so much on KFYO,
right? Yeah.
And whether it be all the areas to the west of us and north and south and so I think that's why we've heard so much.
Yeah, because Kel Seliger's put quite a bit into the media market here, television and KFYO radio.
And so's Cannon. So I think that there's that's an interesting race. Seliger, he's fought back, and there's been a lot of third party money spent on that race on both sides, but more so for Cannon, and that's kind of starting to be an issue in some of the races. And because you look at this, there's someone texted me an interesting website. Don't know how valid it is because I hadn't checked it out. It's called Who Owns Texas. You kind of see the percentages of where some of the money's coming from. But I think, like I said, back to the point, Fallon wins. He's a known. He's a current state rep, and obviously knows how to campaign. And I think he's taking it to Estes, and he'll walk away with it.
This year, Chad, is a good lesson in you can buy a lot of these seats.
Right.
You can buy county commissioner seats all day long.
There's sure an attempt at it.
You can buy party chairman seats very easily. You can buy, city council seats. There's a race down in Houston where Kathleen Wall, some really interesting articles on her. She has been a fundraiser and she has fundraised for Texas Right to Life. So it's interesting to see Texas Right to Life endorse people who have been fundraisers for them or big donors.
Right.
And because it was a surprise, they also endorsed the Huffines. And the Huffines, right, they endorsed Huffines, which was interesting, not the wife of the Attorney General, Ken Paxton. So some of these groups are having to come around and nod to their donors, but this Kathleen Wall lady, she's on YouTube quite a bit too, where she's been at different events and speaking, and she just melts down. It's just not her natural ability.
We've seen that locally too, haven't we?
She's about to be sent to she's about to be sent to Congress, and she's going to be sort of the Sheila Jackson Lee of the Republican Party.
That's not good.
She's just not very good at it. And in the meantime, you've got about 4 or 5 other Republicans, running in that race, who are very, very smart, Navy SEALs, ex-Army, attorneys, big real estate investors, and they're very excellent at speaking, but she doesn't have it, but she's essentially buying, she and her husband are buying the seat.
Well, you're seeing what in like Mays Middleton and Faircloth, that race, how much he's put, I don't know how much into that race. That's turned into an expensive race. That's one of the ones the governor's gotten involved with because we talked about those races.
Yeah, 3 primaries where the governor's
I think that's the one. That's the one he's most likely to win. I think that Sarah Davis in Houston wins that race regardless of what the governor's done. I think
she wins easily too.
I think Lyle Larson wins in San Antonio.
And I've heard you guys on the radio. I don't think it hurts the governor.
If he loses 2 out of 3,
he's still the guy. He could lose all 3. He's still the governor of Texas. He made them run around, put up with the humiliating ads, walk blocks. In the end, he's still the governor of Texas. He's still the most popular politician in Texas, I do believe, and office holder. And he still gets to go into the next session with a veto.
He does, but I think when you're the governor and you're trying to convince people to go by your agenda or else we'll primary you, if you're a candidate out there who is a strong, and Sarah Davis is a strong candidate, if you're someone who is strong in your district, you're going to look at Greg Abbott and say, well, you already tried this once where you tried to primary 3 people. If you lose all 3, it almost weakens you from that threat standpoint.
But
Greg Abbott's going to be governor.
But there's a very interesting article.
That's not the only arrow in his quiver. He's still got the veto. He still has a session to get through. He's still very popular. So maybe he annoyed some people in one district, or maybe he annoyed one legislator. But, Joe Strauss was doing it with a myriad of legislators, being pretty heavy-handed. Yeah. And, in the end, he was still speaker for a while. Now he's gone now, so I guess you can make an argument the other way. I just don't think it hurts the governor very much.
There's a real interesting article in Quorum Report by former GOP chairman Tom Hawken, and he hit the nail on the head that the common theme between those three candidates that Abbott's going against is the fact on the issue of the pay-to-play gubernatorial appointments. I personally don't have any problem with if you give over a certain amount, then you need to wait a certain amount of time so it doesn't look like you're buying the appointment, which, in some cases you can make that argument that, here's this donation, here's this appointment. I think that, if we're going to do ethics reform, that has to be part of the argument. And
I donated to the guy because I know him. I don't think it has anything to do with my appointment. And if I have the money to donate to politicians, which not a lot of people do, chances are they're qualified to do other things too and be very effective on a board and commission.
It's not saying they can't do it. It's just there's a waiting period. And, and in Texas, there is not any kind of limit on the amount of money that you can give. And I don't think there should be. But what I think, there should be full disclosure, and I think that we have a fairly good reporting system, though that leads to another issue of a lot of money from a lot of the PACs not getting reported properly. And there was an article in the AJ, and there's been articles in other media across the state of money not getting reported properly. And, we'll see. There might be a slew of ethics fines come from that because, Carl, you've been involved in campaigns. You know that is one of the things you're supposed to do, and you're supposed to do right.
Yeah.
And so that's and I think full and proper disclosure, the transparency, we need in the elections, and especially if there's an unlimited amount of money, which I have no problem with, that I think that there needs to be, better disclosure. And if it was shown that these guys didn't properly disclose their money, they should be fined.
Yeah. 770-5790, 1-800-687-0790. In the next half hour, we'll talk about the Democratic numbers versus the Republican numbers. Any thoughts on more closer to home, some of the local races that are going on?
I think some of them are tied. I think, Gary Bourne, the county judge race is really interesting to watch. And Gary Bourne he's just a force of nature. I mean, he's an amazing campaigner. You just have to see if he can avoid a runoff. And it seems to be the popular wisdom seems to be that Curtis Parrish would be the one he'd be in a runoff with. Karen Gibson, who frankly I've liked as a council member, and they've made some tough decisions, maybe a couple of bad choices. That's one of the curses of being on city council. But
she's a nice lady and a horrible candidate.
She's a nice lady, not the best candidate, but she's always been very helpful on council. And I feel like she's just kind of given up. It seems, but we'll just have to see how it comes out tonight.
Yep, Chad Hasty Show, KFYO. We'll be right back. All right, Chad Hasty Show, News Talk 95.1 FM, 790 AM, KFYO. Ken Corbin and Carl Tepper in studio. We're talking about election 2018.
Tired of the BS. Vote for BA.
Hey, we got a text that said that I was shilling for the local paper. Well, I mentioned two publications actually, but hey, when the local paper has one of the few articles they locally write in the paper, hey, I'll give Matt Dautre props for at least writing stuff.
Did Dautre write that?
I believe Dautre did write that, yes.
Are we sure?
I think so.
Okay.
So, but that's, without mentioning anybody else, but I think that, no, but hey, give him credit where it's due. And, but I think if you really want to keep up on a lot of local news, go to KFYO.com.
Was that the one where Huddleston didn't
disclose
something? And,
yeah.
Yeah, it seems like we get into that every year where somebody missed something, they didn't disclose something, they end up going to repair it. I don't know. Do you think that's effective?
What's that? Not reporting?
Yeah, I mean, you need to disclose, and it's the law, and you're supposed to do it.
You need to disclose, and and most of the candidates in this area that are on the state reps or the state senate have had some a PAC that was supporting them, or the PAC that's giving them money, or whatever.
And I have to say that Ken King race is. I wonder if he's going to end up in a runoff, and usually if the incumbent does end up in a runoff, it's pretty bad for him.
It's possible because there's two candidates that are Huddleston and BA that are spending pretty significant amounts of money or money being.
They got enough money to get on television, which has been interesting.
And there's also money being spent on their behalf. So it's possible. But I know King's been out since first part of January, and he's been block walking since first of the year being out there, and he's always block walked pretty hard in all of his races, and that's how he won it the first time.
So the one of the big headlines that everyone naturally is running with is Democratic turnout, that Democrats are turning out more than Republicans. Here's what Sam Taylor with the Texas Secretary of State's office sent out just about an hour ago or so. So far, in the 15 largest counties, which represents about 65% of all registered voters, 465,245 Democrats have voted. In Republicans, 420,329. So a lot of Democrats are turning out to vote. As I said earlier, let's talk about Texas turning blue once we get to the general election. I think that's when the Republicans will really turn out. But are there any warning signs here for Republicans?
Well, I was in Washington, D.C. a few weeks ago, and they're very concerned about obviously losing the House of Representatives. Texas has, I believe, is it 8 open congressional seats where
I think it's something
like
that.
Something like that.
And so
or 8 that might actually be somewhat contested.
Yeah, and some of them have become a little bit purple. I think even Pete Sessions is looking at a tough reelection race up against Democrats. So right now we've got some really tough primaries in the Republican Party. The Democrats are running often against themselves as well, in that the Democratic Congressional Committee has stuck their nose in that Moser race where they're trying to dictate to the party who not to choose because she's too liberal, apparently.
Well, in a lot of the urban areas, the Democrats have some highly contested congressional races. They've got contested, gubernatorial races, with the son of a former governor, Mark White running, and
I don't think that's driving it though.
But they have a lot more
and
across the board.
And obviously, it's an anti-Trump fervor in the Democratic Party.
Right.
They realized that they slept on the Hillary Clinton thing. A lot of them just assumed she was going to win, didn't show up to vote, so they're trying to close that gap this year. Now, will it affect us in November? Yeah, I think it absolutely could. I think we're going to have to get out there. As a matter of fact, I was talking to one group. I might get dispatched with a couple of friends to, I told them I'd do Dallas or Missouri. But we might have to send some of our block walkers and strike force within the state here now to this Ted Poe district. I think it's considered Republican safe. I'm not so sure. I think we've got some open seats. I think the Lamar Alexander seat that's opening up is safe. But we are looking at seats like Pete Sessions and some of the others where it's questionable if the Democrats can keep their momentum up, the Republican Party cannot sleep or get too annoyed with itself and not show up to the polls or the Republicans think, well, now we have the top of the ticket. Trump's president. I still have to get out. Yes, you do.
Yeah.
Well, we don't have. And you look at it, we really don't have in the primary. There's not a governor's race to speak of. There's not really a lieutenant governor's race to speak of, even though he's been spending money. Because for him, he really needs to be above that 75% level against somebody who spent a nothing candidate who spent no money. So he really has to show that he's a dominating force, especially if he someday wants to be governor. If he's in the 60s, he's in trouble. I think he'll invite a lot of people to run against him when it comes time for governor. And you look at, we don't have any, neither one of our senators have a primary. So I think that we're not looking at much, especially out here. What's our highest profile race in Lubbock County is the county judge.
Yeah.
And so and it's that way across a lot of parts of Texas, with the exception of, areas Amarillo in the middle Odessa area, and then you've got Wichita Falls, but those numbers don't stack up nearly to what the Metroplex or Houston
But again,
does.
how does it? These urban centers are growing. The attitude, they tend to turn you into a liberal the second you move there.
Yeah,
and we're about to have a little battle in the Republican Party of Texas, which is going to distract us a little bit. You're going to have a party chairman's battle, which looks which looks like it's going to be, and we might, and it looks like it's going to be knockdown, drag out. I just hope that they're able to keep it at a level where, I'm going to be fighting for some of these congressional seats, and I hope they're there with me going into these neighborhoods and walking blocks and not getting so sore about the process that they decide to stay home. I'm a little concerned about Texas right now. If we
got
become
some state rep races that are going to be in November that are going to be of concern.
And if we become purple, Donald Trump's certainly going to have a hard time with re-election. And Texas goes down, electoral college math shows that you're just not going to get another Republican president. So
you have to flip a lot of states in order to replace Texas.
Yeah, no, we've noticed. I know Washington's very concerned right now. They made me just panicked when I got home. So I just hope that the Republican faithful out there keep it to a certain level in these primaries and certainly into these runoffs, and then that we go back in unified going into November.
Well, that's where a lot of the local Republican groups and areas in West Texas and East Texas, where for basically nearly a generation now we've been dominant and had not had to really get out and campaign for anybody in the general election.
It's been a while.
The Republicans, we got to make sure that all of our Republican groups and all of our mailing lists, we're going to need to get together and get out in these areas, because now we get back to what it was 25 years ago, where when Texas was a swing state, where West Texas, how heavy the turnout was in West Texas determined who won. Yeah. And I think we could get back to that, but we got to make sure that we get back to what we
and have we lost some of our skills? Block walking, phone banking. I remember when Ann Richards was still governor. Scott Mann was the chairman here in Lubbock. They had the party headquarters just singing with a phone bank. It was Republican women manning that phone bank. Shoot, Ken, 8 hours a day?
Yeah, and the last time we really had a big, get out the vote effort in November was when for Democrat Republican was Nagelbauer Stenholm, and Robert Pratt was chairman, did a great job on getting that done, and you and I were there
right.
helping him with that, and that was really the last big one that was done. But I'm encouraged by looking at our local races, looking at the teams that have been put together. You look at Gary Bourne and Curtis Parris and Chad C. and Jason
really
Corley
sharp, young upstarts,
and David Nelson and Hayes. The number of people that have gotten out and that are working for them, and then the candidates that are working. And we had people out block walking and phone calling, and I think I'm encouraged to see that, because hopefully those people will get energized and see that their results mattered, and we can get them back out.
770-5790, 1-800-687-0790. When we come back, we'll wrap it up, take your phone calls, your comments on the KFYO text line at 806-680-2790. A reminder, polls close at 7 p.m. If you don't know where to vote, log on to KFYO.com. We've got all the details for you on our website. We'll be right back. Back on the Chad Hasty Show, News Talk 95.1 FM and 790 AM KFYO. A reminder, you can download the KFYO app. It's absolutely free. Tonight, when you're wanting to listen to KFYO election night coverage, a couple of different ways for you to listen. If you're driving around, if you want to listen to us over the air, of course, you can do that. Then you can listen to us streaming at KFYO.com, and you can listen via your Alexa-enabled devices. Many of you have those Amazon Echoes, Echo Dots, everything inside the home. So you can listen via KFYO that way, and then also via the app as well. Ken Corbin in studio, Carl Tepper in studio. Let's go to the phones real quick. And George, you're on KFYO.
Okay, you know how Republicans were winning all elections? They won 4 or 5 in a row. And then now Democrats are winning all elections. In Missouri, there was a 31% change from a Republican seat to a Democratic seat.
Right.
So apparently somebody may be messing with the election system. Also,
I don't think anyone's messing with the election system. And listen, whatever party's in the White House, typically you see that party lose seats in Congress, and you see them. Sometimes they lose the House. I mean, you just see that. There's discontent. No one's ever happy.
Now the 31% change, and over 50 women are running for Congress in Texas. So Democrats have got a 104% plus on their early voting. So that they've more than doubled their early voting.
Yeah.
So they're enthusiastic about it.
Yeah. Right. They are, and Republicans have to match that. Republicans will have to match that in the general.
Yep.
George, thanks for
It is primary day. You can vote at any of the polling locations today that are open. Now, you can't go to where the early voting was. They change them because the Market Streets don't have enough room.
Yeah.
So what they do is they change them. Do you have that list? Or go in the Lubbock County elections.
Yeah, we've got it at KFYO.com, and there's let me bring it up. There's one at KFYO.com where you can view within Lubbock County all of the different vote centers, and there's also, by the way, you can text into a number, and let me bring that up. You can text into, let's see, 75044, 75044. Text your zip code into 75044, and they'll shoot you back 3 different vote locations that are near you.
Yeah, if you work across town from your house, if you live south but work at Texas Tech, you could vote at the library. I think it's the library at Texas Tech
library's
today.
Open.
So you can go ahead. They're called super precincts. They're not a conspiracy. It just makes life a little easier for you.
That's great.
And I recommend you just go out there and vote out there.
Yeah, and there are a lot of different locations where people can vote. Again, if you're near Cooper, Lubbock, Cooper North Elementary School. I mean, so there's a lot of different places. KFYO.com. You can go and vote. And remember, as long as you're in line at 7 p.m., you get to vote.
And I've never been one of these people, well, you better vote no matter what. If you don't care, don't vote. If you haven't read about the candidates,
if you don't know,
care,
don't vote.
If you're not informed, stay home.
Yeah, I've never been one of these. I think the elections office used to get annoyed at me for not joining in the chorus of you got to go vote because, if it's not your thing and you haven't been paying attention to the issues of the candidates and you don't really have much of an opinion, then I'd probably advise you to not pick the wrong person.
Another text that we just got in. This is a great point. Where you should remind Texans a lot of people have moved here from liberal states to get away from all those states' mess and then bring the mess to Texas. And you go back and I know then Governor Perry championed this, and so is Governor Abbott. How many people from California have been moving into Texas within the last 2 to 3 years? And you compare Democratic numbers now to Democratic numbers 3 years ago. I'm not saying that's the reason why there's a surge in Democratic voting, but it's not a bad place to start.
I don't think we're being Californicated just yet.
I did have a lady.
But people bring that mindset here.
I was at the hitching post. A lady came to see the horse, and I know a lot of people did. And we were talking about she just moved from California, very happy with Lubbock. She, it would cost her 3 houses to buy her 1 house here. Yeah. And for some reason, I just felt I had the mood to say, do me a favor. We're glad you're here. Welcome. Don't bring that liberal garbage with you. She goes, no, I've learned my lesson. And so we hugged
and you hope that people do, but it's one thing. I mean, you even see it here locally as Lubbock grows. The city, I think, becomes more liberal from what I've seen. You definitely see that with the city council. People want bigger city things. They want we used to talk the wants.
There's a change in attitude in traffic.
And you do. We used to talk about the wants versus needs, and that we used to be focused on the needs. Now we're focused a little bit more on the wants. And it wouldn't surprise me if we're getting some of that attitude just around the state from people who are moving here and miss some of the nice things that they had back in California that would cost them $80 million. So, Carl, thanks for stopping by today. Appreciate it. Ken, I'll see you tonight. KFYO election coverage beginning at 7 p.m. Stay with KFYO throughout the day for any updates that we may have, and visit KFYO.com to find out where you can vote. Be sure to download the KFYO app as well. Tomorrow we'll wrap up Election Day and see if there are any runoffs.